Here in the book of Leviticus, chapter 13, and the King James Version, because there's a lot. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, When a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising, a scab, or a bright spot, and it be in the skin of his flesh like the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought unto Aaron the priest, or unto one of his sons the priests. And the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh, and when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in sight be deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a plague of leprosy, and the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. If the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, and in sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut up him that hath the plague 7 days, and the priest shall look on him the seventh day, and behold, if the plague in his sight be at a stay, and the plague spread not in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days more, and the priest shall look on him again the seventh day, and behold, if the plague be somewhat dark, and the plague spread not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is but a scab, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab spread much abroad in the skin, after that he hath been seen of the priest for his cleansing, he shall be seen of the priest again. And if the priest see that, behold, the scab spreadeth in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprosy. When the plague of the leprosy is in a man, then he shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall see him, and behold, if the rising be white in the skin, and it have turned the hair white, and there be quick raw flesh in the rising, it is an old leprosy in the skin of his flesh, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall not shut him up, for he is unclean. And if a leprosy break out abroad in the skin, and the leprosy cover all the skin of him that hath the plague, from his head even to his foot, wheresoever the priest looketh, then the priest shall consider, and behold, if the leprosy have covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce him clean that hath the plague. It is all turned white, he is clean. But when raw flesh appeareth in him, he shall be unclean. And the priest shall see the raw flesh, and pronounce him to be unclean, for the raw flesh is unclean. It is a leprosy. Or if the raw flesh turn again and be changed unto white, he shall come unto the priest, and the priest shall see him, and behold, if the plague be turned into white, then the priest shall pronounce him clean that hath the plague. He is clean. The flesh also, in which even in the skin thereof was a boil, and is healed, and in the place of the boil there be a white rising, or a bright spot, white and somewhat reddish, and it be shewed to the priest. And if when the priest seeth it, behold, it be in sight lower than the skin, and the hair thereof be turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of leprosy broken out of the boil. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there be no white hairs therein, and if it be not lower than the skin, but somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And if it spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague. But if the bright spot stay in his place and spread not, it is a burning boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if there be any flesh in the skin whereof there is a hot burning, and the quick flesh that burneth have a white bright spot, somewhat reddish or white, then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the hair in the bright spot be turned white, and be in sight deeper than the skin, it is a leprosy broken out of the burning, wherefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of leprosy. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there be no white hair in the bright spot, and it be no lower than those other skin, but be somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And the priest shall look upon him the seventh day, and if it be spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of leprosy. And if the bright spot stay in his place and spread not in the skin, but it be somewhat dark, it is a rising of the burning, and the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is an inflammation of the burning. If a man or woman have a plague upon the head or the beard, then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry scale, even a leprosy upon the head or beard. And if the priest look on the plague of the scale, and behold, it be not in sight deeper than the skin, and that there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut him that hath the plague of the scale 7 days. And in the 7th day the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, if the scale spread not, and there be in it no yellow hair, and the scale be not in sight deeper than the skin, he shall be shaven. But the scale shall he not shave, and the priest shall shut him up that hath the scale 7 days more. And in the 7th day the priest shall look on the scale, and behold, if the scale be not spread in the skin, nor be in sight deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scale spread much in the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall look on him, and behold, if the scale be spread in the skin, the priest shall not seek for yellow hair, he is unclean. But if the scale be in his sight at a stay, and that there is black hair grown up therein, the scale is healed. He is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. If a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the bright spots in the skin or skin of their flesh be darkish white, it is a freckled spot that groweth in the skin, he is clean. And the man whose hair is fallen off his head, he is bald, yet he is clean. And he that hath his hair fallen off from the part of his head toward his face, he is forehead bald, yet is he clean. And if there be in the bald head or bald forehead a white reddish sore, it is a leprosy sprung up in his bald head or his bald forehead. Then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the rising of the sore be white reddish in his bald head or in his bald forehead, as leprosy appeareth in the skin of the flesh, he is a leprous man, he is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him utterly unclean. His plague is in his head. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, unclean, unclean. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone. Without the camp shall his habitation be. The garment also that the plague of leprosy is in, whether it be a woolen garment or a linen garment, whether it be in the warp or woof of linen, or of woolen, whether in a skin or in anything made of skin. And if the plague be greenish or reddish in the garment or in the skin, either in the warp or in the woof or in anything of the skin, it is a plague of leprosy, and shall be shewed unto the priest. And the priest shall look upon the plague, and shut up it that hath the plague 7 days. And he shall look on the plague on the 7th day. If the plague be spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof or in a skin or in any work that is made of skin, the plague is a fretting leprosy, it is unclean. He shall therefore burn that garment, whether warp or woof, in woolen or in linen or anything of skin. Pages stuck together. Wherein the plague is, for it is a fretting leprosy, it shall be burnt in the fire. And if the priest shall look, and behold, the plague be not spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof or in anything of skin, then the priest shall command that they wash the thing wherein the plague is, and he shall shut it up 7 days more. And the priest shall look on the plague after that it is washed. And behold, if the plague have not changed or his color, and the plague be not spread, it is unclean. Thou shalt burn it in the fire. It is fret inward, whether it be bare within or without. And if the priest look, and behold, the plague be somewhat darker, or somewhat dark after the washing of it, then he shall rend it out of the garment, or out of the skin, or out of the warp, or out of the woof. And if it appear still in the garment, either in the warp, or in the woof, or in anything of skin, it is a spreading plague. Thou shalt burn that wherein the plague is with fire. And the garment, either warp or woof, or whatsoever thing of skin it be, which thou shalt wash, if the plague be departed from them, then it shall be washed the second time and shall be clean. This is the law of the plague of leprosy in a garment of woolen or linen, either in the warp or woof or anything of skins, to pronounce it clean or to pronounce it unclean. Okay. Ooh, huge. A lot here. So one thing that I was looking at when we were going over all of these verses here was this area here in the 38 through 42, I believe. It was if a man also or a woman having the skin or of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the bright spots in the skin or of their flesh be darkish white, it is a freckled spot that groweth in the skin, he is clean. So during this time, there's thousands and thousands of people that are together. And they're in the wilderness and they're on their way to the promised land. And so the Lord's providing them also with things for not only hygiene, but for health. And telling them, if you see these things, go to the priest. And the priest will, at the time, the priests were almost like similar to doctors. They were to go to the priest, and the priest would take a look and see what was going on and deem whether that person was clean or unclean. Now, remember, if you're clean, you continue to follow the commandments, and you also continued in the feasts and all of the other things that they had available for the people during this time, all the commandments. But when you became unclean, you had to separate yourself. You couldn't partake in these feasts, certain feasts, because when you were partaking into something, you were saying that you are sanctified and you're holy. When you're unclean by whatever it may be, in this case of the skin, then you cannot partake in those things because you're unclean. You're to heal. You're to be rejuvenated. You're to continue to trust in the Lord and believe in the Lord and have faith in the Lord, because the Lord is the provider. And so, and seeing that, and that also, the growth in the skin, he is clean. So, telling us exactly what the priest was to look for in order to determine whether or not that person was clean or unclean. And so much here, bringing past to present. Man, there's a lot. Things that immediately came through my mind were, sunburns. Also, between verse 40 and 42, and the man whose hair is fallen off his head, he is bald, yet is he clean? And so there are people who, even today, as we know through genetics, as we know through the different things, hormone levels, in particular of men, how men can tend to lose their hair, particularly on their forehead or on the crown of their head, in different spots. And then what the priest was to look for to see, okay, is this person just having a normal, they're losing their hair, or is there something more? Is there something disease there that could possibly be contagious, can possibly harm others as well? So we're going to deem them unclean if we see these spots and that they're deeper than the skin and that they could spread, so contagious. And that was to separate the contagion from the people. So looking at it from different perspectives and bringing past to present, looking at it from a health perspective as well, definitely an excellent way of keeping things from the population, from the center of the population, making sure that is removed, but also it also is to show us that the holiness of the Lord and the reverence that we are to have with the Lord. Yes, when we do make a mistake, of course, the first thing that we need to do is ask for forgiveness. Ask for that forgiveness and understand that we are still loved. These people weren't told, okay, you're doom and gloom forever. They were told, okay, you got to go out of the camp for this amount of time until the healing, until the process is been completed, and then we can go through the cleansing, and then you will be able to join back in and the festivities and with the people. So these were different things that were laid out in fine detail for the priests, for Moses, for Aaron and his sons, and for the people to see and to live by during this time. And also thinking about, like I mentioned, bringing past to present, thinking about, like I mentioned, sunburn, things about things that we have even to this day. And who do we go to? People will, if they feel like it's a severe issue, they'll go to the doctor, if they don't have, or they'll go to the store and get some burn cream, some aloe or something, and nurse that back to health, and by staying out of the sun, So think about those things, and also think about what that means to your journey, what that means to your journey. So in this case, I want to ask you to go to the Lord and see what the Lord has, what the Holy Spirit has for you in these passages. Before we go on, though, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think?